Having seen this vibrant advertisement, start your day with a cup of aromatic coffee or take it with you. Advertising slogans everywhere emphasize one thing: coffee is exactly what we all need. And it's hard to disagree with that. After all, recently this drink has gained incredible popularity. Just imagine the scale. Every day in the world, 1.5 billion cups of coffee are consumed. And what's interesting, a third of them are attributed to one of the most popular brands in the world, Nescafe. The statistics speak for themselves. About 50% of green coffee eventually becomes soluble. For example, in England, soluble coffee dominates over grain. Considering that the coffee market is one of the largest in the world, alongside pharmaceuticals, weapons, automobiles, and electronics, it would be wrong not to occupy this niche and not to tell about it among the largest players. After all, today, Nescafe is represented in more than 200 countries and is a significant force even in the economies of many countries. Hence, the success story of this brand becomes even more interesting. Exactly about what it all began with and how events developed, I will tell you today. And believe me, there will be a lot of interesting things. The history of the Nescafe brand began back in the 1930s. It started with Nestlé, the world's largest food producer, which I will introduce you to in the next videos. At that time, representatives of the Brazilian Coffee Institute turned to the company with a request to find a way to preserve and industrially process their coffee beans. At that time, the company was already a recognized leader in the development and production of food products, and it was able to fulfill this responsible task excellently. The problem associated with coffee processing was very acute. For many years, Brazil had been looking for any possible ways to process the abundant coffee in the country. But due to the lack of the right technology, coffee stocks worth billions of dollars were lost annually. Equally problematic was the process of storing the beans after drying, as well as their primary processing. The grains could only be stored in a special room with a certain temperature. The company faced a complex task to change something in the shortest possible time, and it set itself the goal of inventing a powder that could be stored for a long time. The search for the formula of the soluble drink was undertaken by a Swiss chemist and a great coffee lover, Max Morgenthaler, the future coffee guru. Born in 1901 into a creative family, Max was endowed with a talent of a different kind. Initially, he simply became interested and later pursued chemistry. After graduating from Burfi Technical University in 1924, he became a graduate student at the University of Vienna and also headed his own laboratory. A few years later, he took a job at the Federal Milk Bacteriological Institute in Liebefeld, where he worked for a whole 3 years. After that, he transferred to the company on the table as the chief technologist. By the way, it was during the early stages of his work there that he first attempted to blend Arabica and Robusta to create soluble coffee based on them. However, the result was a drink that was truly soluble, but tasted awful. Max, being a connoisseur of exclusively high-quality coffee in his youth, considered his development a complete failure, so he didn't even attempt to create a soluble beverage again at that time. At that time, the chemist couldn't even imagine that one day he would spend days again in the laboratory trying to come up with a formula for soluble coffee, but this time for mass production. During his research, Max discovered that coffee kept better if processed at high temperature and pressure, and during experiments with various additives, it turned out that the powder he developed also enhanced taste and aroma when milk and sugar were added. Failures were constantly interspersed with small discoveries, and finally, after a long 8 years, the answer was finally found. So in 1936, Morgenthaler was able to obtain the desired soluble coffee, which could be prepared in seconds, stored longer, and was more convenient to use. The owners of On the Table were very satisfied with Morgenthaler's work, after which they naturally shared their advantageous conditions with their Brazilian colleagues and even decided to launch a separate plant for the production of soluble coffee. It was launched in the Swiss town of Arbo, 50 kilometers from the On the Table headquarters. On April 1, 1938, Nescafe appeared on store shelves in Switzerland for the first time in its original packaging and immediately became popular with all coffee lovers. At the same time, the first advertisement for the new product was released, which was published in a Swiss newspaper. The advertisement spoke about the quality of the drink, its ease of preparation, and most importantly, its long shelf life and simplicity of storage. And it was precisely in this way that Nescafe quickly gained a confident market share in the Swiss coffee market. A little later, even the Second World War, which began in 1939, did not affect the scale of production. Moreover, it contributed to the development of the soluble coffee market, the demand for which during the war period only increased rapidly. The coffee beverage became so popular that all the production of the second factory, which was located in the USA, was exclusively dedicated to supplying the army. For example, in 1943 alone, the company sent 1 million packs of soluble coffee to the front lines. Like all ingenious innovations, it was characterized by factors such as ease of preparation. Even more importantly, its invigorating properties became its most valuable assets. The popularity of the new product brought good profits to Nescafe during wartime. While other companies struggled or went bankrupt one after another, Nescafe swiftly grew. As a result, in the post-war period, the company expanded its market boundaries by exporting coffee to France and Britain. The Allies thoroughly studied American soldiers' rations and were surprised to find something they lacked: Nescafe coffee. However, little attention was paid to the name, which no one bothered to elaborate on. Nescafe derived from a combination of the simple words "on the table" and "cafe." But what's even more interesting is that the father of soluble coffee, Max Martin Thaler, hardly ever drank his own creations and preferred the classic brewed coffee. However, this, my friends, was just the beginning of success. The 1950s marked Nescafe's ascendancy as the favorite beverage of teenagers who traditionally gathered in cafes to listen to their favorite rock and roll music. Meanwhile, the company didn't stand still and constantly improved its formula. In 1952, in the French town of Saint-Main, the company made a breakthrough by developing a technology for producing soluble coffee without using a carbohydrate base. This meant that from that moment on, Nescafe became entirely natural, as its production no longer involved any artificial additives. Another significant factor in Nescafe's success was a random advertisement that played into the company's hands. It's not certain whether it was genuinely accidental or a stroke of marketing genius. A photograph taken in 1953 during the first ascent of Mount Everest by Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay featured a small tin of Nescafe coffee. The event was widely covered worldwide, and the simple photo naturally boosted the company's sales. A few years later, the Nescafe coffee tin made several more grand journeys, including a trip to the moon with the Apollo 11 astronauts. The 1960s were a period of refinement for Nescafe. The company's laboratories invented the freeze-drying method, meaning coffee was dried only at low temperatures, preserving its aroma and making the taste more intense. In the same year, the production of freeze-dried soluble coffee was launched. As a result, Nescafe Gold Series coffee appeared on the shelves, distinguished by its slightly caramel aroma and astonishingly smooth taste. In 1965, a coffee was introduced to the market that is well known to all of us. Nescafe in glass jars became the world's best-selling coffee. In just one day, Nescafe in glass jars appeared first in Japan, and within a year it conquered European supermarkets. But the story of the world's most popular coffee certainly didn't end there. Just 2 years later, Nescafe invented granulated coffee. You won't find the real composition of such a beverage on any label, as this information is considered a trade secret, and was patented in the 1970s. The company continued to grow, opening new factories in new countries and expanding the boundaries of new flavors. The assortment expanded not as quickly as desired, but the release of a new flavor was always an achievement. The company worked hard for, and every employee strived for it. For example, a unique recipe for Nescafe cappuccino was released. Interestingly, such a drink was first released under the Nestlé brand as a trial version, but it wasn't particularly popular. Nescafe slightly improved the taste by adding a delicate aftertaste, and sales took off, especially since Nescafe cappuccino could now be easily prepared without a coffee machine, making it quickly popular among coffee lovers. There was no point in resting on their laurels. The company needed innovations and achievements. The Nescafe leadership proposed a major risk for the company by trying to add various flavorings to the coffee. It was a difficult step, but worth trying. The beginning was laid in 1992. Thanks to Nestlé's unique coffee flavoring technology, leaving competitors far behind. This revolutionary method marked a new stage in the production of elite Nescafe varieties, which included unique flavorings. And the company's designers also didn't stand still. They made their adjustments to the packaging, thereby cementing success on the world stage. Now elite coffee varieties could be recognized from afar. In 1994, experts at Nescafe introduced yet another new production technology called full aroma. This product stood out from its predecessors with a distinctly strong aroma of real whole bean coffee for enthusiasts of this invigorating beverage. It's also interesting to note that Nescafe utilizes a special secret roasting system for coffee beans, giving them a unique and unforgettable aroma that imparts a divine taste to the drink. It's not widely known to the general public that Nescafe is the second well-known coffee brand. Immerse, known for its coffee capsules in the shape of a hemisphere equipped with a filter and membrane, was invented by Eric Favre. Back in 1975, the bottom of the capsule has a pierced aluminum foil for airtight packaging, ensuring that the taste and aroma are preserved. Such capsules require a special coffee machine, the first of which was introduced as the C100 by Nespresso in 1986. Initially for 2 years, these machines were positioned as ideal only for offices and were not very enthusiastically received. However, in 1988, the Swiss corporation changed its positioning strategy for the capsules, promoting them under the Grand Cru label, indicating their premium quality. These capsules were sold exclusively by pre-order, and operators at Espresso only answered the phone after the third ring to create the impression that there was an unprecedented demand for Grand Cru. Thanks to such skillful positioning, the Espresso brand still thrives today. There are 24 subsidiary brands, Underground Cru, and the number of coffee machine varieties has exceeded 50. Capsules can only be purchased through the official website by phone or at an Espresso boutiques. In 2006, Espresso even hired the mega-popular actor George Clooney to advertise an espresso under a 6-year contract for which he received about $40 million. However, the company recouped all these expenses within a few months. Capsules represent an entirely new niche, which alongside soluble coffee was pioneered by Nescafe. It's worth noting that it has proven to be a real goldmine. Over the past few years, Nescafe has invested $500 million in supporting coffee farmers in China, Indonesia, Colombia, the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, and Mexico. Such high expenses are associated with the search for new flavors and production technologies. The company now benefits from purchasing coffee exclusively from verified suppliers who work solely for Nescafe, and its entire success depends on this brand. Today, Nescafe offers the widest range of products in various packaging options to cater to every taste and consumer preference. Yet the company still adheres to its main postulate historically, reflecting the ideology of the brand. Nescafe is the best in the world for soluble coffee. In the summer of 2017, Nestlé acquired the rights to use the Starbucks brand for $7 billion, according to Bloomberg. The management at Nescafe believes that this deal will allow them to expand their presence in the American market and increase their revenues. According to Mark Schneider, the executive director, Nestlé aims to bring together the 3 major coffee brands in the world: Starbucks, Nescafe, and Espresso. This consolidation is expected to increase the number of potential consumers. As for coffee varieties, for over a century, Brazil has held the leadership position, with most brands sourcing their beans from this South American country. The variety of Arabica beans in Brazil exceeds 40, and the high quality of the raw material has made Brazilian coffee the best in the world. Colombia, Kenya, and Guatemala follow Brazil in terms of coffee varieties. Arabica and Robusta are the leading types of coffee beans. Arabica, cultivated in about 50 countries worldwide, holds over 70% of the market share. The taste of Arabica varies depending on the region where the plants are grown. Brazilian Bourbon Santos is among the most valuable Arabica varieties, with about 45 different types available. Arabica coffee is known for its rich and bright taste, low caffeine content, deep color, and glossy surface of the beans. Robusta, primarily an African coffee, has a high caffeine content, resulting in a strong and invigorating brew, but with a slightly bitter taste. Therefore, Robusta beans are often blended with other varieties such as Arabica to balance the flavor. Robusta holds about 20% of the mass market share. It's interesting to note that the same beans can be purchased by different manufacturers who process the product using their own techniques and technologies. Whether it's granulated beans or ground powder, each brand offers a different approach. But ultimately, it's the same coffee. In summary, this is the reality of the coffee industry. A story of discoveries, achievements, global leadership, and recognition. It's a history that has completely changed our understanding of coffee. What's your personal relationship with coffee, especially soluble coffee? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I hope you found this video informative and enjoyable. Feel free to rate it as you see fit. Until next time.